All right, guys, this is a special edition of Fight Court. This is the coach's corner of Fight Court because we are blessed and graced with the presence of greatness here. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Tim Baghurst. He's got a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information, and I hope he can share some of that with us. So my very first question for you, Doctor, is how did you get into coaching?
That's a long-winded answer to
well, I got a bunch of questions like that too, so get ready. Great. Yeah.
Okay, so when I was in college, even before I was in college, I was an athlete, just like many of us, and I wanted to go into coaching, but it didn't exist. The profession of coaching, we're talking the 1900s here, if you can think how old we are now. Mm-hmm. The 1900s. The coaching as a profession really didn't exist. Yes, they were coaches. Yes, they got paid, but there wasn't much professional development. There wasn't much certification and training, and absolutely no coaching degrees of any kind. I went through sports psych. I went through teacher education. I went through kinesiology. I went through physical education, learning all of these different disciplines that really apply to coaching. But again, coaching as a degree didn't exist. A lot of us picked up coaching perhaps as an accident, as a byproduct of perhaps being a good athlete. Oh, you're a good athlete. But can you help me do X, Y, and Z? Or have you thought about coaching? But really, for me, coaching was an extension of teaching. And I still view that if you are a great coach, you are a great teacher. And being trained as a teacher, teaching in schools, taught me a lot about how to apply those principles into working with athletes in what might be a very dynamic environment. Teaching tends to be a very static environment. Kids in chairs in a classroom. We have control of this, but as a coach, we're in a very dynamic, moving environment where we're dealing with maybe a lot more emotions, a lot more environments. We're dealing with situations where pressure is substantially higher. And those things you don't necessarily translate over from education. So really for me, it was, I became a teacher. And from a teacher, I wanted to apply that into coaching. Now, I've been fortunate to coach a variety of different sports at a variety of different levels. But one of my goals in my career was to help develop coach education for people who, like me, wanted to become a coach or wanted to improve as a coach and really didn't have that outlet to go, this is where I need to go. This is what I need to do. That's what I've been trying to do here at Florida State.
So, and this is another open-ended question, and you can keep it as simple or as complex as you like. And this is a very personal question towards you, Doctor, and that is, as a coach, what is your main goal to get through to the people you're working with?
Yeah, I think if you ask this of a lot of people, you'd probably get a lot of similar answers, in the sense that our goal as coaches, my goal as a coach, is to help that person become their GOAT. And that's what I've really tried to pass on to the people that I work with. And even my company, my logo is a GOAT. I'm not talking about, I want Quinn to be the greatest of all time. I want Quinn to be his greatest of all time. I want him to get better. And if he can continue to get better, then he becomes a better version of himself. We often translate that to, well, how successful is Quinn? Is he winning? Is he dominating on the mat? No, that's not what I'm asking. That's part of it. But part of it is, who is he as a person? Is he more motivated? Is he more disciplined? Is he more compassionate? What are the values that you have as a coach that you want to pass on to somebody else? Those are the things that, as a coach, I'm trying to really instill in the athletes that I work with, the clients that I work with. And if I can do that as a byproduct, guess what happens? They're probably going to get better. If I can teach Quinn to grind through tough circumstances, hard workouts, et cetera, and he develops these characteristics, good chance he's going to improve as an athlete. And as a consequence, good chance he's going to be more successful than he was before. So it's really about improving the person. And as a byproduct of that person's improvement, we see improvement in their win-loss ratio.
Awesome. So, Doctor, now it sounds like also with coaching, a lot of your traits circle into leadership, obviously. But I don't think people realize that when we're talking about coaching. We think about just doing what's next in the sport that we are passionate about or that we're doing professionally. What would you say was your aha moment? Like, oh, this is a trade in itself. The leadership aspect or the coaching aspect of this sport. Was it at competition? Was it in practice? But you're like, I got to figure out a way, or I have figured out a way to get through to those I'm working with.
That's a really good question. I listened to a podcast last week, and by the way, I love yours as well.
Thank you.
There's so many out there. I wish I had all the time in the world, right, to listen to all this great stuff. I was listening to a podcast about leadership, and it was a psychiatrist who had written a book about how leadership courses are in many ways a waste of time and money, because leadership is not something that we can necessarily train ourselves to be. We can improve certain aspects of our leadership, maybe our communication skills, et cetera. But leadership is something that is deep. It's personal. It's part of your personality DNA. And there are very many different types of leaders, but that desire to be one or to be a good one is often something that's internal rather than, oh, I can just trained in to be a great leader. No, maybe that person doesn't want to be a good leader. I'm an introvert. I really don't like being front and center. I don't like being in front of an audience where I'm giving a talk. I don't enjoy that. I would much rather be in the back in a corner just doing my thing. That doesn't mean I can't be a good leader. I have to recognize what my strengths and weaknesses may be. For me, there was one instance, Quinn, where I realized that I had leadership potential. And I was away at a conference with other academics, sports science people, and I was a minnow in this environment. Okay, there's lots of sharks in this environment who are just big names, big time people, very successful. And then there's Tim, who's kind of just this guy who's not been as successful as other people. And we did this outdoor ropes course thing. We did this one activity and everybody's standing around looking puzzled. And I decided to step forward. We need to do it this way. You go do that. You go do that. You do this. And let's get this done. They listened. They did it. We were successful. It comes to the next obstacle. The instructor of the course comes up and says, okay, we need to choose a leader for this next obstacle. And they turned to me and said, well, Tim's it. And for me, that was very affirming to be able to look around and see that I am nobody special in this group. There are a lot of people out there who are very qualified, more qualified than I am, more experienced than I am, et cetera, et cetera. And they're turning to me and saying, hey, will you lead us? I say that as well, recognizing that when in a team environment, the best player doesn't necessarily need to be the leader, right? This is about who is the best person to lead this group, not necessarily their resume, not necessarily their experience on the team, et cetera. It is who has the characteristics necessary to be successful, to pull this team together, to get things accomplished. And I think if we take that perspective rather than, oh, we can have a long conversation on this, let's vote on who the captain will be, or I'm going to let the players decide, or I'm going to decide who I think it should be because I need to get on with them as a captain. I'm not sure those are the best ways to do it. We need to find who that leader is who's going to drag that team along when they're confused or unsure about what to do, where to go. Maybe they're tired and they just need pushing.
Great. So I love your GOAT analogy. I think that's a fantastic referencing thing to go to. I know myself as an athlete, I've run into this before, not even an athlete, other things in life. I wanted to be the best over here, but my coaches and those around me were, no, you're up here. You're supposed to be over here. And I was like dragging the horse to water.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get athletes or those you're working with, even coaches, to recognize like their best strengths in their coaches? How do you get through to them to try to figure something out that sometimes what they're looking at necessarily is not where they're going to be their GOAT? How do you get them to be open-minded to other possibilities as to where they can improve and be better than where they're at?
Yeah. 2 points to that. One, just because, let's take this from the perspective of an athlete. Just because I think I should be in this role doesn't mean I should be. Just because, conversely, just because my coach thinks I should be in that role doesn't mean I should be. And there are examples of this across sports. If you've read Tim Tebow's biography as an example, he wanted to be a quarterback. His coaches were like, no, you're not. Look at you. You're this big, massive guy. You're going to be the running back because you have the stereotypical physique for a running back. And he said, no, I want to be a quarterback. This was in high school. And his coaches said, no, you're not. You're going to be a running back. And he said, okay, I'm going to another school where the coach is going to allow me to be a quarterback. He knew what he wanted to do. He knew what he wanted to be. And he became pretty successful, I think it's fair to say, in the role that he knew was best for him. So there are times where players do know where they best fit. And sometimes that's counter to what logic would say or what statistics would tell you. Conversely, most athletes, especially when they're younger, don't necessarily know who they are, what they can do, or make best decisions for themselves. Let's be honest, when we were 18 years old, we didn't always make great decisions. We all thought we were it, and we all thought we knew what we were doing. And we weren't going to listen to somebody else tell us we should be bear. Don't you know who I am? Don't you know what I do? They don't know anything. You understand where I'm coming from here? As teenagers, I've got a couple myself. They tend to think they're right more than they're wrong, even if mom and dad maybe know better. Therefore, as coaches, sometimes we are right and they're wrong. And we have to understand the perspective of the athlete and work with the athlete to find the best fit for them. A point guard, as an example, who's coming up and saying, I want to be a center. Okay, yeah. Let's talk about that. That may not work for you, and here's why. And so, Quinn, part of that discussion has to be with the athlete, with the parents, if necessary, if they're that young. Probably every year, sitting down and each season saying, okay, what are your goals for this season? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you think your strengths and weaknesses are? Now here's what I see and what I think your goals are. Let's work together to come up with what our plan is for this season. Because if we don't have that, what happens? You have your personal goals. I have my goals that I think are for you, and we're not on the same page. And so through the season, we may be fighting each other about what is right. And I've seen it, unfortunately, where some athletes have been working out in the gym contrary to the instructions of the strength and conditioning coach because their goals were maybe the 40-yard dash or to look good or, and I'm not joking, to look good, or other goals where the coach is designing a workout that's supposed to make you more agile or more flexible, etc. But you're ignoring that because you have your own personal goals that you haven't shared with your coach. So if you don't have that coach-athlete communication, you're going to have these mixed messages, confusion, frustration throughout the season, because your belief about what happens and my belief about what happens are two different things. I'll give you one quick story. I'm fortunate to have written a few books, and one of them is called Case Studies in Coaching Ethics. We wrote a story in there, a true story given to us by a wrestling coach, where the player on the team was, again, correct me if I'm wrong, because the scoring in wrestling can get convoluted at times, but essentially the coach wanted the player to write out the opponent for the sake of the team points. But the athlete didn't want to do that, because it's much more fun and looks way better on social media if I can pin this guy. So instead of writing it out, they tried to pin the guy, and it didn't work. It backfired. He didn't win or get enough clear points in order to help the team, and then the team didn't succeed. And so the coach goes to the player, "What are you doing?" And this happened more than once. "What are you doing? I told you to ride out this player. You were on top. You had control. You were in the lead. That's what we need." "Yeah, but what about my influence on social media? What about my sponsorships? What about my deals? I've got to get the clickbait in order to be visible. And I'm not going to get that by sitting on somebody for 2 minutes." Well, clearly we've got a difference in what they value.
Was I the wrestler in this story? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, this is all you, Quinn.
But you understand what I'm saying here.
Absolutely. Because I've been in
if you have two different goals, we're going to have conflict at some point.
Now, Doctor, I saw your resume and I appreciate the hell out of it. I mean, you got degrees, University of Arkansas, 3 different countries. I mean, you are educated. Your education is deep. But then there's also, I understand, just being in the field and doing the work in the field. At what percentage do you think did you learn your craft in the classroom as opposed to just being a coach?
Yeah, I wish I could put a number on that. I can't. The problem that we learn from learning in the field, there's 2 problems. One, we tend to rely on what we've learned in the past, and we have a limited knowledge of what we've learned. We've learned from the people that we're around, maybe our coaches when we were growing up, maybe 1 or 2 coaches that are near us while we're coaching. We definitely learn more while we're practicing, because we're seeing it day in, day out. How do I deal with this? What should I do here? How should I plan that? That is a daily occurrence where we're trying to improve. However, there's a danger to that, because I'm going to pick on Quinn here. If I learn from Quinn and Quinn is using methods that are, shall we say, outdated, I'm now using methods that are outdated because I don't know any different, because I've never been taught anything different. The value of education is that it allows you to get not only best practices, but also an understanding of what else is out there. Have you ever heard of the Kruger-Dunning effect?
Yeah. They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, so the Kruger-Dunning effect is this idea of when we start out in something, whatever it is, we quickly realize how good we are at it. And then after a little while, we start to realize, actually, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
And then slowly over time, we start to learn and appreciate what we do know, but also what we still don't know. And I think a lot of coaches who come in the profession have this Kruger-Dunning effect, where they come in, well, I was a great athlete, or my coach, we won state, so I know what I'm doing. And they come in and they think they know all that, and then boom, stuff starts to happen, and they begin to realize, actually, I don't know anything. There's stuff going on. I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know how to coach this. I don't know how to work with this. And there's that crash. The hope is when that happens, or it never happens because they learn before they get in, they go, you know what? I need to go learn. I need to go find out how to educate myself on these topics to get better at this. unfortunately, I would argue that the vast majority of coaches don't. And there's a variety of reasons for that. But the ones that do are the ones that do enroll in our master's program, that do go to clinics, that listen to podcasts like this, who say, I want to get better. I realize I know so little about this sport, about coaching. And even as you said, then I still don't know that much. There's so much out there that I wish I knew, because that makes me a better coach. And so there's that continual quest to just keep learning.
Yeah, I'm pretty obsessed with learning. Like, I'm constantly reading books on coaching and psychology and how to learn information, how to pass that on. But I know we're running short on time, so I'm gonna let Ryan get one more in before we cut you loose. So Ryan, if you got another
All
one
right.
from a man.
All right, cool. So, first of all, before I get into the question, there's 2 books that I'm going to recommend for you guys that you made me think of. Dean, you already read one of them. If you have not read them already, maybe you have, Doctor, but um, they're baseball books. Moneyball, where it talks about analytics and basically how coaches could learn from mathematics. But the other one on the flip side of that, is the Yankee Years, about Joe Torre. Joe Torre is an old school manager, and he talks about how he was kind of crapping on analytics, and he just didn't agree with it because this game has a heartbeat. And it's really, you see both, and obviously everyone's gone the other direction. But anyway, I do have one question.
Yeah, keep going. I'm looking on my bookshelf.
Yeah, there's there's different styles of coaching, as we kind of mentioned. It's not a cookie cutter thing. We got to learn. What are some styles of coaching? Like, what I think of is a player's coach, what they say, which is someone who's kind of like likes to be buddies, more of a, what's the word? Autocratic, I believe is the word, where they're a little bit more strict. Maybe there's others. Those are the 2 that come from mind to me. Has there been any studies, or maybe you've done them, the most effective style of coaching, or is there other styles of coaching that you find effective? Personally, I don't believe you could be both. I really do believe that because what you're going to end up doing is you're going to be a player's coach with one person, and then you're going to be dominant coach with another, and it screws with the culture on the team. But I mean, you could blend a little bit, but you gotta have one identity. Is there any styles of coaching that you could think of, or that you've done studies on, that I didn't just mention, or effectiveness within those 2?
Yeah, let's just say I'm a little disappointed, Quinn, that my books were not on that list you just gave out. Let's just, like, you just deflated my ego significantly. There have been a couple of books that have been written since Moneyball on data analytics. If anybody wants to reach out to me, I'd be happy to dig them off my shelf and send you the recommendations. One of them I'm just looking is called Hot Hand. It's a very recent one on, is there momentum in sports and how does that work? But
That's cool.
the other one that comes to mind, I can't give you the title because it's just not quite there. But to answer your question, we have to be careful of this term styles. For example, we've learned over time that there are learning styles. There's different ways for us to learn, and recent research is coming out and saying that doesn't exist. It's a false belief that we have learning styles. That there aren't. Now, do we have preferences? Sure, but we can still learn through any style, so to speak. And we've got to be careful of the same thing where, oh, I'm an autocratic coach or I'm a democratic coach. No, that's not necessarily true, because you have to consider the demographics of who you're coaching. For example, if I say I'm an autocratic coach where I just tell you and you do it, well, what if I was a democratic coach with 8-year-olds? Do you know how disastrous that would be? I mean, can you imagine the debates about
That's
what
fair.
snacks we should have at the end of practice? It would be
fair.
a mess.
I want moon pies.
we're having cookies. The end, right? We make autocratic decisions. Or what should we do for practice today, everybody? Oh my gosh, it would be insane. So we have to consider the age, the demographics, the type of athletes we have, and adapt our coaching to meet their needs. So you said, for example, you can't be chummy with one person. Chummy is a dangerous thing in itself. You don't want to be in a position where that athlete is your friend, because what if you have to cut them? Or what if you have to walk away from coaching them for some reason, etc.? That's not how this relationship is supposed to work. Can you be friendly? I would hope so. But an autocratic, democratic style, no, it's more of a blend where when I'm coaching, and I coach the junior national team for USA Racquetball, we had 28 kids going to a different country to compete. And a lot of them I don't know very well. So what's the first thing I did when we were at training camp? Survey. How do you like to be coached? Some people, I love it when you kind of get emotional and loud outside the court. Okay, well, that's completely against my nature. I just told you I'm an introvert, but that's how you want me to be. So I've got to be a little bit of an actor and put on a show on the outside of the court to get you pumped up so that you play your best. Another person, maybe I just need somebody to just talk to me during a break and tell me it's all right. Okay, that's what you need. That's what I give you. So it's less about this is my style and more about how can I become that chameleon, the coaching chameleon. Ooh, that would be a good title of a book, wouldn't it?
Coaching
That's the next one.
Yeah, there you go.
Chameleon. How do I adapt who I am to give you what you need in order for you to be your goat? And so even the coaching I do now in pickleball and racquetball and other things, I have such a diverse range of people that I work with, from children up to 85-year-olds. I can't talk to the 85-year-old the same way I talk to a 12-year-old. That doesn't work. I can't instruct the same way. So I have to be very cognizant of that and change the way I coach, whether it be my attitude, the words I use, the enthusiasm I have, the instructions I give, how much control I give them over how they run practice. That all has to be changed based on who I'm working with. Key question though, before we go, ask your athletes how they like to be coached. I hated it when somebody screamed at me as a coach. That just ruined me. That took away all my confidence because now you think I'm a failure. And I must be a failure. And then all of a sudden my confidence is gone. I needed somebody to say, don't worry about it. You got this. We believe in you. And then I played great. But somebody else may need that. What are you doing? Come on, push. You train, whatever. But if you don't know, you could be doing the absolute worst thing for that athlete. And so they're succeeding not because of you, but in spite of you. And that's poor coaching.
I mean, you answered a lot of questions and clarified a lot of things, in my opinion, that are the biggest issues in coaching in MMA. So I appreciate you coming on and dropping this knowledge. Tell everybody how you can, or how they can get your book, because I'm gonna get the book.
It's pretty simple. Baghurst is a pretty uncommon name. So if you go on Amazon and type Baghurst, you're going to find my stuff.
Okay.
There's a few different ones out there. If you're a true coach, coaching for sports performance is probably the one for you. It's got a chapter on each science within coaching, not written by me, but written by experts in biomechanics, motor learning, nutrition, strength and conditioning, that really kind of covers that whole umbrella of things that we as coaches really need to be knowledgeable in.
So, and one more time, the name of that book?
Coaching for Sports Performance.
Okay, yeah, so that's the one I'm going to get. In fact, I'm going to send that to a couple of my other coaching buddies because we need to advance our game. And but again, Dr. Tim Baghurst, you are the man. Hopefully we can do this again, man. Yeah. I have so many more questions, but we're going to have to do that in part 2. But I appreciate you coming on the show today, man, and thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll go to your turf next time. You have us on your podcast, or maybe we'll go up to Tallahassee sometime. And
Quinn, I've already had you on, but I would have a blast having both of you on at the same time. I'm sure we could cover a lot.
Yeah, we can do a special segment right at Doak Campbell Stadium.
Yeah. I'm working on my studio as we speak.
Awesome.
All right, Doctor. We appreciate you. Have a good day, my man.
Thank you so much.
All right.
All right.
He was awesome. Ryan.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. I mean, he really laid down some things that, like, for me, the biggest problem in MMA coaching is the fact that we're doing things just because of the way we've always done them. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it was right We're just doing them because that's the way we did it at Top Team, or that's the way they did it at Brazilian Top Team, and that's the way they did it at the old Gracie studio. Like, if you go to any gym in the country, like there's doing this like jiu-jitsu place, they do the same warm-up.
Yeah.
It's the same. Run around, knees up, heels up. It's the same thing.
You know, I loved how, and it really opened my eyes, because I truly, for my whole life, especially my coach career, you could be this person or that person. You need to have your identity as a coach, and it makes, like, you can have some traits from another, but it really, you got to diversify a lot more than that. To his point, you can't talk to an 8-year-old. And I'm laughing because I know there was adults in MMA that we told about the snacks that they can have and can't have.
Anyway, all right, my man. I will catch up with you and we'll chop it up.
Yep. Have a great weekend.